Have you ever felt hopeless about your career trajectory? Like, no matter how hard you work, it doesn't really matter because you're not going in the right direction. And maybe you're so tired of working at a job that just doesn't feel like you at all. As a society and amongst friends, it's kind of a given that you won't be yourself at work. You put on this corporate front, and you're not supposed to really love your job. It's just something you endure. But I've also witnessed people who have built their own careers and are so in love with the work that they do. And I knew that deep down in my heart, I looked up to these people because I knew that I wanted that in my life. And I believe that a lot of you guys watching this video might have a similar desire. It had been a full year, and especially in the last couple of months, where I was starting to feel so split between the life that I was living and the life that I actually wanted. Trust me, in the past 6 months, I've gotten so much coaching and mentorship advice on should I stay? Should I go? Am I ready to just fully dive into building my own business? When is the right timing? And I've boiled down all the thought and consideration I put into these next following tips. So if you're in a similar position or at all considering leaving your job or pivoting for something new, make sure you listen carefully and also apply these tips to how you're currently feeling and seeing if it gives you any new perspective. And right now I'm in Japan because after I left my corporate marketing job, I came to Japan alone for a bit, for a few months. One Japanese phrase or way of lifestyle is ichigo ichie, and that means being present and just living life presently. And with my healing journey and all, I think becoming present again is really important after a pretty stressful past few years in startup marketing. So that's where I am right now, and let me share these couple of tips that are so helpful. At the end, I'm going to share the most important, truthful message that anyone who is currently struggling with their career needs to hear right now. Whether you're self-employed, whether you're unemployed, whether you're recently laid off, fired, whatever, whether you're fully employed, maybe watching this on your corporate work hours, this is advice that we all need to hear, and I'm going to share that at the end. And I've been in the marketing field for the past 4 years now. One of the biggest things I learned was that it's not all or nothing. And when I was younger, for example, when I quit my job in New York in 2020, I was a very all or nothing person. I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur or nothing. I realized it's really not all or nothing. You can be an entrepreneur while still being in corporate. Corporate is not a waste of time if you are using the time well and learning and contributing. Even if you're working anywhere. I was a barista at Phil's when I was 24 with a whole freaking economics degree. I was making people coffee, and I learned a lot there. I know how to make great coffee. No, but it doesn't even matter because I quit drinking coffee. But also I met a really great mentor by being a barista, and that's one of the most special connections in my life that has taught me so much. And that was through that job. So basically, it's really not all or nothing. You don't have to hate where you are in life right now to be somewhere better or to become more. You can do it together. And I think the reason that the younger me resisted this was because of the grass is always greener mentality. So it's oh, when I quit my job, my life's going to be great because I'm finally going to just be my own boss, and it's going to be just so much better on the other side. But that was just me being a little naive and delusional, honestly, because being your own boss, owning your own business is so much responsibility. You don't have to hate your job just because one day you want to be somewhere else. So that was a mindset this time around in my life, in my mid to late 20s, that I developed that I didn't have right out of college. And I think it's really important. The second thing is that people don't care as much as you think. For months, I had this crippling anxiety about what are people going to think of me? What is my boss or my coworkers going to think of me? What is my family going to think of me? None of it matters. None of it matters. first of all, I didn't even tell anyone. Like, I barely told anyone in my life, and now I'm just making a video talking about it on the internet where anyone can see it. So, like, at the end of the day, everyone doesn't even know that I left my job. So, like, it's like, if a tree falls in an empty forest, did it even fall? Yeah, like, nobody knows, nobody cares. And once I post this video, I don't think people are gonna care that much. Second of all, my company, like, my employee or coworkers did not care. Like, maybe they cared, but it wasn't that deep, you know? And so I was like, all of this stress and anxiety over it, it was really all just in my head. Like, at the end of the day, focus on you. You do you, stay in your own lane. People really don't care as much as you think. This can get in our heads so much, especially because there's so much societal stigma around leaving your job, or for example, if you're just unemployed, like searching for a new job, being unemployed, not being able to get a new job. Like, there's so much stigma around that, about what that means about you as a person, and all of that is false. Like, people who think that way, I think they just don't have enough life experience, and they haven't seen enough of the world to really understand, like, that life is just life, and sometimes it happens, and not everything is like in our control. So I spent a lot of energy on working with these beliefs and judgments, just to realize at the end of the day, people really don't care as much as you think. Everyone just cares about themselves, and it's not that deep. And that's not in a cynical or like rude way. It's actually a blessing, because just you get to focus more on yourself, and that's been really helpful for me. Okay, the third point is to have savings or have a financial plan. And my fourth point, I'm gonna go deeper into this because I kind of have my own perspective around this that I really needed to work through, so maybe it'll really help you too. But let's go to the third point first, which is more standard, and that's just to have some savings or have a financial plan. Because let me tell you, when I quit my job straight out of COVID, when I was in my early 20s, it was really difficult because I still had to pay off half a year of rent in New York, even though I left New York. So I was just paying for rent in a place that I didn't live anymore. I didn't have income. So any capital I wanted to put into business, and I started a e-commerce business with my younger sister, I had to self-fund that. Like, I was a barista making money for clothing inventory. Really hard, would not recommend. It's way better to have savings, some investments, whatever you need to just kind of feel like, okay, like I'm not in survival mode, I'm gonna be okay. To have some sort of proof of concept about the thing that you're trying to build. Ideally, have some side ways of making money should you really need to do that. Then the fourth point, I'm gonna go a little deeper into this because this is something that was really helpful for me, and I feel like doesn't get talked about enough. But the fourth thing, along with like knowing your literal financial picture, like how much do I have in the bank, how much runway do I have, how can I make more money if I suddenly need more money, on top of all of those simple practical things, I also think it's really important to understand your own relationship to money and be super honest about that. This is from a practical level, but more from an emotional identity level. So for example, for me, I never really considered myself as someone who was too attached to money or valued money too much. And sometimes I think it's a good thing, and sometimes I think, oh, maybe it's, not great. Maybe it would be better if I cared about money a little bit more. But I know that for me, ever since I was a kid, like, my experience of life mattered a lot more to me than wealth or being able to like have really luxurious experiences all the time. Of course, I'm still pretty young. Like, I don't have immediate, like, my own family unit or anything. Like, I don't have any codependent. It's just me. So that changes things a little bit for me. But just being able to be really honest with that, I realized that if I have to keep limiting my authentic self, what I truly stand for, and what I authentically want to communicate. For example, filming this video is already very different from how I felt when I was working at my corporate job, feeling like I had to kind of filter myself in what I said in my videos. Like, this time I feel like I can just literally be really authentically who I am, where I am in my life. But basically, if I have to give all of that up just for the financial security of a really nice paycheck, I felt like it was diverging me from who I was really meant to be, even if that path was a little more challenging. And again, like, practically make sure you have it covered, because I do have enough money to just cover like the basics of my life. So if you really need bougie experiences, and that is like, I need to have that or I'm not going to be happy, if you need to like eat at the like really nice restaurants, you know, have a really convenient lifestyle in the way, like have a really convenient lifestyle, maybe think a little longer about leaving your corporate job. But if on the other hand, you're like really down to earth, you don't spend a lot of money on the daily, and that works for you, it might be easier for you to quit your corporate job and not be as emotionally or on an identity level like jolted by that. So I guess it's really like, what are your emotional needs and identity attachments around money? And you really have to weigh that off with your career and your paycheck. Okay, the other, I think this is a fifth tip, and this is so critical. I'm just warning you ahead of time. You're going to have to do shadow work. You're going to have some level of needing to process your emotions. So for me, when I left my job in New York, I had to pack my stuff and walk out of the office building. And as like a 23-year-old, walking out on your job like that, it feels like you have no identity anymore, because you're just out of college, like everyone's starting to build their career paths, like everything, right? And then COVID hit, so it was just like even worse. For me at that point, I was actually so mentally ill, like I had to go see a doctor and be like, am I okay? What's happening? Like this is an all-time low for me. I don't know what to do. So this time around, it's like I know how to cope with these things. I also have better preparation, and I have my past life experiences to shine light on these things. So this time around, the transition period was a lot better, and I had been fully prepared for it as well. But still, I'll say that first week was really hard. But then honestly, after a week, I was totally fine. So like the turnaround time this time around was a lot faster, and it's also because I did a lot of shadow work, which is something I do in my coaching too, and just something I'm a big advocate for, like shadow work. It's hard, but do it. So even if your business right now is having a lot of momentum and you're leaving a career to like do that more, there's at least gonna be some transition phase, even for you if it's just a day. But for some people, it might be a week. For some people, it might be like a month. But just knowing that there is going to be that transition phase and being okay with it instead of thinking there's something wrong with you, that's going to make all the difference, I swear. Because the first time when I left my job in my early 20s, I had never done that before. So I thought there was something intensely wrong with me because I was going through this transition phase. Like I thought I'm supposed to be happy right away. I'm supposed to be okay right away. Like I'm not supposed to feel all these like confused emotions. And that's what really like screwed me, because then I was full on freaking out like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? Blah, blah, blah. But this time around, I knew ahead of time, okay, there's probably going to be a transition phase, and I'm going to accept that that's normal. So that's one of the biggest advice I have for you. If you're like leaving a job, quitting, if you just got like unemployed or laid off or whatever, just knowing there's going to be a transition phase, and that's okay. That's part of the process. It's just like when seasons change, there's that weird interim phase where you're like, what should I wear? It's just a transition phase. It's very normal. So before I share the last kind of resounding message that I think is really important for you to hear if you are having career doubts or feeling like you want or are in a career change, before I share that, I'll just really briefly talk about what's next for me. For me, I've been in my past role in my startup for 2 years, worked my butt off, like really, tried my best to build the startup. So of course, even though I was ready to leave, I had been ready to leave, actually leaving, it was a loss, and it was grief, and it was change, and it was something I definitely needed to cope with. And that transition period for me, again, looked like about a week this time around, but it was still very much there. I love marketing, and I love the work that I was doing before, which was starting to go more into like the marketing metrics and strategy side, and I love that. It's great. But I was realizing that it's not the thing that I love the most. It's not the thing that I care about the most. And with all the self-love and self-worth work that I've been doing in the past couple of years, it got to the point where I realized like I love and respect myself enough to just give myself this permission to do what I truly care about and to spend my own time and life energy into building the impact that I truly want to see. And I think that came from a lot of the healing work that I had been doing and letting go of a lot of fears and things that weren't me, until I got to that point where I was like, I'm ready to be me, and I'm going to be okay being me. So I'm a life coach. I help people on their business. I help people on their lifestyles if they're working a 9-to-5, with the core theme of how do we listen to our hearts more? How do we find more joy and be in more alignment so that we can actually build the dream lives where we're feeling really fulfilled and we're like passionately reaching our goals. So it's kind of like a blend of practical and also inner work coaching, and I've been really loving it. And I just genuinely feel like I'm making the kind of impact that I truly care about in people's lives. And yeah, by the way, if you want to work with me or just even have a call to see what it could be like, link for a free consultation call down below. You can just talk to me about where you are in life right now and what kind of goals you're feeling towards. YouTube for me has been a long, winding journey. I've actually created content on YouTube since 2008. So yeah, I definitely relatively am not that successful on YouTube, but recently, after taking a 4-year break and starting to make videos again, I realized that I do truly love making videos, and I'm open to continuing to share my journey and just connect with you and just find my voice through creating the content that I care about and the messages that I really want to share. So I'm going to be continuing doing that. And sharing more of this journey from me. So the final message that I want you to walk away from this video with, no matter where you are in your life, if you're unemployed, if you're thriving in your corporate career but thinking of quitting, whatever situation you're in, if you have $0 in your bank account, or if you have debt, or if you have $1 million in your bank account, at the end of the day, I truly believe that you're going to be okay. And it's all about being strong with yourself in that process instead of crumbling and like freaking out and like just beating yourself up for not being okay. If you just trust that it's going to be okay and you hold that faith in your heart and know that you'll find your way no matter what path you choose, I think you'll really be okay. There's so many messages of fear that spread in society, and our brains just jump to like the worst case conclusion always. Like, if I don't have a job, I'm going to end up on the streets. I'm going to be starving. Everyone's going to leave me. Nobody's going to love me anymore. All of those are not the reality. And it's going to make your life so much worse if you succumb to those thoughts. Instead, if you just take a deep breath and know that no matter what, it's going to be okay. There's always opportunity in life. You can always start over. You can even go back to the same career path if you realize that actually this isn't the right path for you. There's so many options, and so just really take a deep breath, realize that you're going to be okay, and trust in the universe. Because right now I'm in Japan. I'm very far away from my home, my family, everything. I'm not as financially stable as I was per se when I was working like a pretty lucrative marketing job in corporate. But the universe has been so kind to me. Like, I've had so many little experiences in Japan so far that have made me feel so cared for and so okay. And even when I was leaving my job in California, there were just little gifts from the universe too that reminded me no matter how scary it feels, it's gonna be okay. So trust. So I hope you found this video helpful if you're in a similar situation. These are tips that I've been reflecting on for years and years now, and I found them to be really resonant and true in my own life. So thanks so much for watching, and yeah, you know where to find me, all the details in the caption down below. If there's any topics that you want me to talk about too, feel free to comment below.